Third.
Today we're going to be going back under the hood of this Chevrolet Cruze to figure out why it's still throwing a code for the lean system. I suspect that it is a intake leak on the turbocharger side, so we're going to continue trying to figure that out. And it should get pretty adventurous because we're going to be taking the bumper off. And we'll go from there. Okay, so now we've popped the hood of the Cruze again and we're going back underneath it. Now let me just try to explain what we're trying to figure out. Now this is a turbocharged equipped vehicle. Normally you would have the intake air go straight into the engine block through the intake manifold, which is here. However, since we have a turbocharger, there's more routes that the air has to travel and there's more potential for leakage. In this case, the air will enter into the air intake inlet underneath behind the grill. It'll travel underneath into the air intake box, and then it'll go take two 90-degree turns into the turbocharger where it'll get compressed, and then it'll go downward into the intercooler where then it'll get cooled by airflow. Then it'll come out of the intercooler, come back up and over, and then it'll finally make its way into the intake manifold. Since this air has to take a longer route and there's more connections, there's more potential for it to leak. In this case, I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 potential points that it could leak at. Now, with the system lean bank code that it's throwing, there could be a couple of reasons for it. One is that the mass airflow sensor is erroneous. It's bad. Well, I've already changed out the mass airflow sensor and that hasn't changed it. So the second culprit that people usually say is that it's the intake valve cover with the diaphragm here. Well, I've replaced that and that hasn't taken care of it. That has not taken care of it. The third culprit is they say that there's a check valve inside this intake manifold that could potentially pop and that can throw off the idle and throw a lean condition. Now, I replaced this intake manifold 2 years ago. I used the Dorman unit. It seems like it's better. I don't suspect that it's the intake manifold. It's been hard to check, but I can just go ahead and I'll look at it again just to make sure and confirm. But what I really think the culprit is, I think we do have a intake leak somewhere between the intake manifold or the air filter and the intake manifold on the intercooler side. The piping here that they use is plastic and it gets through a lot of heat cycles. As you can see, there's evidence here that this engine runs very hot due to the turbo, and after 10-12 years the piping gets very brittle. So we'll go ahead and go into that and we'll check it out and see. Now, I went through the car yesterday and I actually took off the bumper yesterday and went through it a little bit. And I really wish that I filmed that because it was more adventurous than I anticipated. But I was racing the daylight, the sun was going down pretty quick, and I wasn't thinking, hey, let me do this for YouTube. I was thinking more like, hey, let me just get this done and not let the sunlight run out. Now, as you can see, there's evidence here of destruction. And what happens is this entire front bumper was held on by plastic clips that essentially break when you try to remove them. Well, they break if you're like me and you don't research how to take the bumper off and you just start taking screwdrivers and prying up on them like, you don't know what you're doing. Previously, if I was a little bit more patient, I had a little bit more time, I would have researched how to take the front bumper off. But the fact is that I've watched several videos and nobody ever really fully explains how to take this bumper off. I think everybody just goes through the same process. I think they just start unbolting stuff, they start breaking clips, they eventually get the bumper off, and it never really goes back on the same way. So if we get a little bit more time, I'm going to attempt to cosmetically repair the scratches here and the gouges in the plastic. And I did take the time to go and try to track down. So I went to Harbor Freight Tools and I bought the automotive plastic fastener kit. And I did get the 5/16 rivets. And then I also bought the panel clip pliers. So in the future, when this bumper comes off again, which it will, I'll be able to remove these properly. But for now, everything that came off didn't go back on except for the screws. So it went from 24 bolts and fasteners holding this bumper on to just 8 bolts. And the other 8 fasteners are actually at 16. So 16, so 8 fasteners are gone and 8 bolts are holding the bumper on. So we'll go from there. So my plan is that I'm gonna go back over and all the couplings and all the connections where they meet up, I'm gonna hit them up with the black RTV silicone instant gasket maker to complement what's already on there, to really try to seal it up. So there's 3 screws right here that are gonna tie the bumper to the fender panel. We have 3 screws here holding on the driver's side, holding the bumper onto the panel here. As you can already see, one's working its way loose, so obviously they didn't go back on properly the last time. There's 2 screws here, one on the right, one on the left, and then underneath there's 6 screws, 3 on either side, that we're gonna have to get to. So we're gonna go ahead and start undoing them, and this bumper is gonna be coming off. So as you can see, the bumper doesn't exactly line up from when it came back in. So it's actually critical that I get those plastic flanges back in. Oh, and I went ahead and got this finally for the first time. Let me see if I can go ahead and clip it open real quick. I finally got a parts holder. Dropping them down the, I finally got a parts holder so I'm not dropping random screws everywhere. So the reason why this is all cockeyed the way it is because I drove it this morning, and since those rivets, the support rivets aren't holding the bumper in, all these screws are starting to work their way loose. The bumper actually is probably moving while I'm driving. It's probably flapping in the wind.
One.
Alright. So like I said in the previous video, this bumper is going to be coming off again, and when you only have 16 bolts or 8 bolts doing the job of 16 bolts, or whatever the math works out to be this time, it definitely comes off a lot easier. So there's really not a right way or a wrong way to pull the bumper off. All you do is you just grab on it and you just start pulling, and you hope to God you don't rip it in half. So you're gonna start from this end and you're gonna start popping them out. There's some clips where it plugs into the bodywork on the fender. And then you're gonna go to the right side here, or passenger side, and you're going to do the same thing. And you're just gonna gently work it out, hopefully. There we go. Once you get that undone, then you go ahead and grab the front and the bottom just pop it out. Now you don't want to yank on it all the way because you got wiring, the lights that you have to undo. So I can show you right here. If you want to go ahead and get a little bit closer, I'll show you where the wiring comes in. If you want to go ahead and zoom in on here, you have the passenger side amber driver's light, or the passenger side amber light that you're just going to disconnect. And to do that, you're just going to go ahead and twist and release. And you're going to be careful not to touch the bulb. You're just going to let that free hang for a little bit. Then you're going to slightly move it out. And then you're going to look over here and you're going to go ahead and unclip these lights. So you're going to have the driver's side amber light that you're going to undo. You have the power plug here that you're going to undo. Now this is really interesting because since this is an eco model, they have the power source available for the light, but they don't have the lights equipped on this vehicle. So you could actually go in and you can replace this plastic mount with the fog light from a Rally Sport model of the Eco, and then you already have the power source ready to go. That's what this tells me. Finally, you're gonna release this clamp right here. It's gonna pull out. This is another one of those dreaded fasteners that break on you. And then you're gonna undo the power source here. Now, this part right here is the electronic air dam. And this is what helps the Eco model. What happens is when you go up to a certain speed or you go below a certain speed, it opens and closes to improve the aerodynamics of the vehicle. And that's how they chase after that miles per gallon, that fuel economy. This plug is going to be a little bit more difficult. You want to use a screwdriver. You want to push down on the clasp here using some type of a sharp edge tool. Just like that. You want to work it, be careful not to break it. And then smoothly pull it out. Again, you don't want to ever force anything. You just want to be gentle and you can work it. Or you can get frustrated, just start yanking on it like me and hope that it comes out. But no, you just got to work with it. When all else fails, use a bigger screwdriver. Should be it. Oh, there we go. Okay, let me redo that so we can see how it works. I'm going to go back in and do a lot of extensive editing, but can you really zoom in on this part right here? Okay, like as maximum as you can go, get maximum resolution. Because that's going to be a key part right there. Because I don't see that in any of the other videos. Let me take a look real quick. All right, perfect. Okay, so on this clamp, the trick is once you push down on it, you want to take a very small screwdriver. You want to reach in like this, and you want to, there's a little tab that you want to lift up on. So there's that little silver tab in there. You want to use a really skinny screwdriver, and you want to lift up, and then it'll slide out. Again, don't ever force it, don't break it. All right, now that that's done, the bumper should just lift away from the vehicle. Okay. So of course you're gonna want to move the bumper and not scratch the paint. Or if you're like me and this car's been in California for the past 10 years, the paint's already been scratched up. So we'll go back and fix it later. But for now, you'll just put it to the side. So again, we're gonna revisit the routing that the air intake, that the air goes through the intake. So it goes from here, which is right underneath the grill, the air inlet. It goes down, it goes around, it goes even down some more, and it goes back up into the air box. And I can only assume the reason why it goes down and goes back up is it creates a U for any water that may get ingested if you try to go through the high flood waters, which we all know people try to do. It goes to the air intake, it goes into the pipe between the air intake and the turbocharger. It goes into the intake side of the turbocharger where it gets compressed, and it goes downward. And now that we have the bumper off, I can show you that it goes down into this flange, which then plugs into the intercooler right here. So this is the intercooler inlet. The intercooler will cool the air through ram air, and then you will go to the outlet side of the intercooler, where then the intercooler will dump the air into this pipe, which then goes up and around and over before finally going through the throttle body, and then it finally goes into the intake manifold. Now what we're going to do is we're going to chase down, since we have the bumper off, we're going to take this opportunity to point out some of the mechanics here. First of all, the intercooler is usually going to be mounted on the front of the vehicle, since cooling the intercooler or cooling the turbo air is going to be high priority. In this case though, they put the intercooler behind another cooler, which is the oil cooler. And then you have the radiator right here, which is behind the intercooler, which is right up against the radiator fan. And somewhere in here, I think they put the transmission cooler also. But you have the oil cooler, you have the intercooler, and then you have the radiator itself. And they're all sandwiched on top of each other. Now, they do make aftermarket intercoolers, which repositions the position of the intercooler and puts it more downward below the oil cooler, and it puts it right in the view of, basically it puts it right in the ram air, in the grill, so it hits the air. The air hits it first and it hits everything else. But since this is stock, for whichever reason, they decided to put it behind the oil cooler. So that's what we have to work with. All right, now this is the whole reason why we made the video. So I suspect that there's a leak here on the intake side of the intercooler. To release this pipe, which is a one piece, there is a tensioner ring that you're just going to go ahead and reach around with your hand, and you're going to unclip. At least yesterday I was able to do it with my hand. Okay, here we go. So the tensioner ring comes off. Are you able to get it? Are you able to get so the tensioner ring comes off, and then you can pull the part off by hand. Now, as you can see, yesterday when I took this part off, it was nasty, it was crudted with oil, it had dirt all over it. Obviously, that was a big error leak right there. Where the oil was coming from, it was probably coming from the turbo. Why was it coming from the turbo? I don't know. Probably because it's a cheap Chinese turbo that I bought off of Amazon. It's probably already on its way out. But that's what happens when you roll with Amazon Prime and not GM original parts. But it's okay, because the turbo's probably going to get changed out anyway in the near future. And then when we change it out, we're going to go big turbo. We're not going to go the cheap turbos anymore. But for now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this black RTV silicone gasket maker, and I'm just going to shore up the existing ring that's already in there. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to use the black. Now, they make several colors on our RTV gasket maker. I'm not really sure which one to use because they make yellow, they make red, they make black, they make blue, they make all the colors of the rainbow. So what I've done is I've just used the same color as what is going on. Since the plastic is black, I'm going to use the black stuff. And we're going to hope for the best. At the end of the day, the car's paid off, so it's not like I really have anything to lose. Oh man, that smells really strong. Whew. All right. So I'm going to put on the little white tip. I'm going to clap it off with the pliers there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to come around the seal here and I'm going to start to apply the gasket maker all around. Now I don't want to get too crazy with it, but at the same time I got to make sure I have an even seal all the way around. Hey cuz, are you getting this okay?
Oh, that's good.
Alright, can you see the gasket maker going on?
Yep.
Alright. It's always hard to get around the other side. Cameraman may not be able to see it, but sometimes you just... So here we go. I'm going to get a video of the RTV maker real quick. All right, perfect. As you can see, I got it all the way around on the other side as well. Maybe. There we go. All right, I'll hand it back to you.
Yes.
Thanks, cuz.
Gotcha.
And then we'll go ahead and re-secure it.
You tell me when.
Start doing it.
1, 2, go.
1, 2, 3, 4. Filming?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 3, 2, 1, go. Yep, that's it. It's on. All right, cuz. Oh shit, that almost cut me. All right, we're almost done. Are you filming? Is there fingers over the... I see your fingers all over... Oh, you must be using the camera. Okay, thanks. So what do you think so far?
Alles perfekt.